Hello everyone, so this is a follow-up video on the first video that I made on how you can create packages in R. So we are going to look into more details of how to do that, and also how to publish your package on a GitHub repository, and how you can follow up with the version control, just making sure that everything is in sync with whatever you're doing locally on your machine. So the number of packages that we'll need to do this. So before you start, you need to ensure that you have these packages installed and loaded. So we'll need the DevTools package, we'll need the Oxygen 2, TestHut, and NitR. So I already have them installed on my machine, so I'll simply load them. Now for you to initialize a directory for your package, there's a function called create package. So we'll run this function with the directory where we want our package to be stored, or our package folder to be stored. So let me just call this describe. So describe is going to be the name of my package. So you can call it whatever name that you like, depending with the functionality or depending with the main purpose of your package. So for my case, the main purpose of my package is to create summary statistics. So I'm going just to call it a describe package. So once you do that, once you define your directory and remember to give a name to your package, you simply run that line of code. So when you run that, it will create a new project and set that new project to be the project directory of your package. So it's going to open a new R session, R studio session. So within the new R studio session, you can now see at the top we have the name of our package R studio, and if you check on this other side, you can see that this is now an R studio project. So let's copy this code over. So you only need to run this once for every package that you create. So we've already done that. So the next step is to initialize our Git repository. So you do that by using the function use git from the use this package. So I'm going to run that. So when you run that, you'll be asked whether you want to commit these changes. So it's creating, what that function does is to set an active project for your package, and it also initializes a Git repository. So of course we want to commit these changes to a Git repository. So we'll say yes. Adding files, making a commit to the message initial commit. A restart device is required to activate the Git pen. Restart now. Of course we want to activate the Git pen, so we'll restart. So that is number 3. So once you restart, you now have the Git pen, where now you can be able to commit your changes and then push them to your GitHub repository. So once you're done with that, you can now start creating functions within your package, because a package is basically a collection of functions, data, some tests, and some documentation or some tutorials. So for this case, my package is all about creating summary statistics or descriptive statistics. So I can have a function called summary R. So I want to create a script called summary.r. So I'm using the use underscore r function from the use this package to create that script. So when you run this, it'll create for you the script and open the script in the editor pane, where you can now write the actual function for doing summary. I already have such a function within my GitHub repository. So let me just take that. So I already have a function for doing the summary statistics. So I'll just copy that. Yeah. Let me call this summary. And I don't want to round off. So let me just remove this. So once you have your function, you need to create a documentation for your function. So you need to tell a user what Z means. This parameter, is it a vector? Is it a data frame? Is it just a single numeric value? So you need to tell that to a user. So for this case, I expect that to be a data frame. So when a user supplies a data frame, then this function is going to compute summary statistics across the columns of that particular data frame. So it's going to give me the number of observations, and it's going to give me the mean, variance, standard deviation, minimum number, and the maximum number. Then it's going to return for me a data frame with these columns. So when you want to create a documentation of your function, you simply place your cursor within the definition of your function. Once your cursor is within the function definition, you go to code and then insert an oxygen skeleton. So once you do that, this R oxygen 2 comments pops out. So these are the R oxygen 2 comments. They start with the hash and then the apostrophe. So the title is a summary. Parameter Z is a data frame. Then it returns a data frame. And we want to export the name of the function. So the name of the function is summary. Then we can have some examples. For the examples, you can just create some fake data, some sample data. Let's say var1 is equals to C. var2 is equals to C into brackets. Then you call your function. Then you supply the name of the data frame. So once you have your ROxygen2 comments ready, it's very easy for you to create now a documentation. So a documentation is what will pop out when a user does something like this, question mark, and the name of the function. So currently when I try to do this, it just give me the documentation for the default summary, but I don't know if there's a default summary function. Let's just check that. Yeah, there is a default summary function within the base package. But now I'm trying to create my own version. So let me just call this summary 2 to differentiate. If I try to do this summary 2, now documentation of summary 2 in a specified packages and libraries. So I want to create a similar documentation for my own custom function. So for you to be able to create a documentation, there is a function called document within the DevTools package. So you're going to run that. So once you run document function, it creates for you the R documentation for your function called summary2.rd. So when you check within, let's just check that quickly. Hope I'll get that. Describe. So you can see we already have a documentation for our summary2 function. Then the next thing, once you've done the documentation, you need to develop a test for your function. So for each function that you develop within your package, you need to have a corresponding documentation, then a corresponding test file. So for you to create a test file is very easy. We are going to call the use underscore test function. So use this use underscore test. So once you do that, you now create a corresponding test file called test dash summary.r, and then it's going to use the test hat package, which is the golden standard for testing in R. Is going to add that to the description file, and then it's going to do configuration. It's going to change the version to version 2 or edition 2, and it's going to create for you the test file and open it for you so that you can now write the actual test. So we can call this summary works, and summary 2 example data frame. So let's just create the example data frame and simply copy this. So once you do that, we can maybe just pick the second part of that, because first position contains the n, the second position contains the mean. So we can just test the mean. So we select the second portion of running my summary function on the example data frame. So of course, when I run this, I'm going to get all the four, I mean the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 statistics, but I just want to test the mean. So that's why I'm just picking the second statistic. So this should be equivalent to definition of mean is getting 3 plus 10 plus 30. Then you divide by that by 3 because there are 3 elements. Then for this other column, you expect to have that 3 plus 10 plus 111. Then you're dividing that by 3. Now once you have your test and then you also have your documentation ready, we can now do a check just to verify that our package is in the correct state so far. So to do a check, we'll simply run a check. First of all, we are going to load, and then we do a check. So loading simply runs your entire package in a fresh R session, and it tests everything. It runs the test and checks that all the necessary files have been created correctly, and we have a proper folder structure. So let me just copy this too. going to take a while to run the tests. So you have 0 errors, 1 warning, and 1 not. So the first warning is about the license. So if not given a license to a package, you need to have a license, either MIT or a GPL. Then there is something about these functions, the variant and SD. So we need to load the stats package which contains these functions. So you're being given a suggestion here that you should import from stats, SD, and variants. You're going to do that. First of all, let's deal with the issue of the license. So for the issue of the license, we simply need to pick this. So you can pick either MIT or a GPL. So for this case, I'm just going to pick the MIT license. So when I run this, I'm going to generate a license file for the MIT, and I'm going to have a license for my package. So once you do that, it's setting license field in the description file to MIT file license. And then it's also creating a license file, and it's adding the license file to the rbuild.rbuild ignore file. So once we've done with that, let's also correct this issue of loading the stats package. So any package that you use within your package, you're supposed to specify that within your either namespace or a description file, whether you're importing just specific functions or you need a number of functions from that particular package. So let's edit our namespace file. So once we're done with that, let's have now we can specify that the variance function comes from the stats package. You can use a qualified name for that, stats package. So now let's again load our package with load all. Then now we do the checking again. DevTools check. Now we have 0 errors, 0 warnings, and 0 nots. So our package is in the right state. So you'll do this. You'll repeat the entire process that we've just gone through for every function that you create within your package. So you need to define your function. Then you need to create documentation for your function. And then you also need to create test files for your function. Once you've done the 3 steps, you need to check. So the best way to check is just to run the DevTools load all. So you load your package. Once you load your package, you run the checks, and then you should expect 0 errors, 0 warnings, and 0 nots, just to ensure that your package is in the correct state and is ready for submission either to CRAN or to GitHub. So you're going to get some. Let's do some version control. When you look at your gate pen, you can see that I have some changes here that I've not committed. So for you to be able to do that, you need to create to initialize a GitHub, or rather to generate a GitHub token, and then set some credentials, and then we are going to use GitHub this function to just specify to our studio that you're going to use GitHub for version control. There are other systems like GitLab, but for this case, we're just going to use GitHub. So we need to generate a token for this repository. So for you to do that, we simply run this code. When you run that code, it's going to take you to your GitHub account if you have one. If you don't have, you'll need to create one first. But for me, I already have a GitHub account. So simply log in with my password. Then you're going to be asked to describe your token. So for this case, let me just say it's for testing purposes. Then you generate your token. Then you simply copy your token. Then now we can set credentials. So you'll be asked to whether to use the current credentials or to override. So let me just replace. Then you ask to enter password token. So I already have the token. So I'll enter that token here. Then we've added new credentials. So once you've done that, you now run this command to use GitHub. Then you'll be told that there are uncommitted changes and you're about to create and push them to a new GitHub repository. Do you want to proceed? So yes, we want to proceed. So it creates a repository with the name of the package. Then there is one uncommitted file, description file. Is it okay to commit it? Yes. So once you do that, it will create for you the repository, as you can see, with the name of the package, describe. Now let's now come on this pen and do this some of these actions manually. So we have a number of files here that have not been committed yet. So like the R, man test, and these other files, we've not yet committed them to our repository. So let's do that within our studio. So I'm just going to do this in one step, but if you can do them one by one, but I'm just going to select all of them and then commit. Say and use a message like update files. So once you commit, now you can now push them to your repository. That has been done. Now when you check your repository, just refresh. Now you can see now I have the R folder, man test. So the R folder will contain all my R functions. So currently I just have one R function, but you can add them as much as you can depending with the purpose of your package. Then the man folder contains the documentation for your functions. Tests contain the tests for your functions. Now we can also add the README page. So we'll do that within RStudio. So let's go back to RStudio. There is a function called use underscore README. So let's run this. So when you run that, it adds your README document and it opens for you in the editor pen so that you can add some information. So the goal of describe is to create summary statistics across columns of a data frame. Then is a good place now where we can write some examples. So for the examples, I just pick this. So once you've ensured that you've written your README file, remember to commit and then push it to your GitHub repository. So currently when you look at this, it's still not yet updated. Still not yet updated. So for you to update data, you need to commit. So just select the file and then commit. Added README file. So once you commit, then now you push it to your GitHub repository. So once you do that, now when you refresh your repository, now you can see the README. So giving you the goal of your package, how you can install your package, and some examples. So when this has been done, now you can just check. Let's just open a fresh RStudio session. Just restart R. Open a new script. So let's install this from GitHub. So once installed, we can now call it the usual way with the library function. Then now you can use some functions within this package. So the function is summary 2. Then it expects a data frame. So now we can use even maybe an inbuilt data set like empty cars. We just check that we have good. We have all numeric columns. So if we call this on empty cars, give us a summary statistics, the n, mean, variance, standard deviation, mean, max, and a range. So that's how you can be able to develop your own package and also publish it to GitHub repository, where now you can be able to share with others, and others can also install it and use it. So that was a basic overview how you can do the whole process starting from scratch and then doing all the way up to publishing to GitHub. In the initial video, I did not show you how to publish this to GitHub, but in the current video, I hope this has been helpful. So you can now do the entire process and publish your work to GitHub repository, where others can be able to see and also contribute to your project. So until next time, thank you.